Watching the Newstrack, and we have with us ace political strategist Prashant Kishore, and I want to spend this part of our interaction talking about Tamil Nadu. Now, you're in this unique position where you're speaking to Mamata Banerjee on one phone and Stalin on the other. How are you coping with these two requirements?
I have only one phone, so whether I'm speaking to MKS or Mamata,
no, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes,
how difficult is it to try and focus on two completely different election scenarios?
It's a challenge which I have accepted, and I think I'm supported by very able colleagues. They're able to manage things. I work as hard as I could, but largely the team is pretty capable to pull it off.
Is Tamil Nadu much easier than West Bengal?
See, no election is easier. It looks easier for people who are commenting from the outside. You go and talk to the DMK rank and file today and tell them that Bengal is very difficult. They are not bothered about Bengal election. They are bothered about how to win Tamil Nadu and their own constituency. So those who are actually, those whose neck is actually on the line, for them elections can never be easy. But given the overall scenario, you could say that Bengal is much more high-stake game, looks like much more high-stake game than what it is in Tamil Nadu.
In Tamil Nadu, over the past several months, Chief Minister Edappadi Palaniswami seems to have made some kind of a comeback. That the AIADMK doesn't seem as weak and fractured and divided as it was. They've been able to come together. Their anti-incumbency isn't quite as high as it was immediately after Amma died. And therefore, does that then present a greater challenge to the DMK than seemed the case a few years ago?
See, this whole debate of EPS, as he is popularly called, doing better, is based on the very low base or literally no expectation people have from him. So people thought he will collapse, he would not be able to run government, AIADMK will cease to exist. Of course, those things have not happened. And we must give him credit for that. But this is not to say that he has become the most popular, more acceptable, charismatic leader as some are trying to make out to be. Yes, by his own low standards and widespread people's expectation, he has done better. But make no mistake, DMK is headed for one of its biggest victories in Tamil Nadu.
Now, one of the imponderables at this moment, or the variables, is the DMK Congress seat sharing talks, where we're still in the middle of that conversation. But the Congress is being offered about 20 odd. They started by expecting about 70. They've now come down to about 35. But there still seems to be a 15-seat gap between expectation and the offer.
Yeah, but whenever you have an alliance in an election, these things are part and parcel. You know, AIADMK, BJP, they are equally, struggling with their own alliance partners. Freezing of these numbers, it takes time. Sometimes, it matches your expectations. Sometimes there is a give and take. I'm sure it will get sorted in the next 2-3 days' time.
How do you see the Sasikala factor play itself out and this effort that's being made to engineer a rapprochement between Sasikala, OPS, EPS and the AIADMK, the breakaway faction and the existing card?
See, I'm not an expert on the lady per se, what actually she brings on the table, but just theoretically speaking, AIADMK, which is the party or the faction which probably she represents, they are a breakaway part of AIADMK. So any realignment, it goes without saying, would be advantage, would help AIADMK by that much. But if you add 2% more vote, AIADMK goes with AIADMK and they all come together, it might help them with 2-3-4% vote. No one can quantify exactly how much, but at least psychological boost, a little bit of psychological boost. I think the gap between the DMK and the AIADMK alliance in Tamil Nadu is so wide that I do not see that having any material impact on the possible outcome of
How do you see the BJPs play in Tamil Nadu? For a party that has as limited support and vote share, they seem to be making a rather ambitious and audacious play.
Because they are ruling India. Not because they have great presence in Tamil Nadu or there is a great deal of public support for BJP. It's just because they are the big brother by virtue of being the ruling party in India. So they can arm twist, they can impress upon those who are the key players in Tamil Nadu to take them on board. So BJP, whatever they are presenting or whatever they are, if they are trying to make themselves an important player in Tamil Nadu, it's just a function of their strength at India level. It's not, it has got nothing to do with their presence in Tamil Nadu. BJP in Tamil Nadu is still, I would say, less than a marginal player.
Since you work both with Mr. Stalin and Didi at this time, I want you to compare the two. Give us your sense of working with Mr. Stalin. You don't speak Tamil.
I don't.
He understands English, doesn't speak it very well, likes to speak through a translator. How has it been working?
See, language is a bigger challenge in Tamil Nadu versus West Bengal, where I'm able to converse in Bengali. Though I don't speak Bengali, but I understand Bengali, and all meetings I am able to do in Bengali. Tamil Nadu is much more difficult because I don't understand Tamil, but you know, you have to fight with what you have, and we know, we have gone there knowing that the language will be a constraint. It's like you are a player, all your life you have played spin, you go to Australia, you have to play on a fast pitch, you have to prove your mettle there.
So how has it been like working?
It's difficult, but again, I have colleagues, all my colleagues are Tamilians. In Tamil Nadu, the IPAC is made up of all but people from Tamil Nadu. So they are there to help.
Except your top brass.
Not even top brass, like 2 or 3 people who might be there who are not Tamilians, but 99% people are Tamilians.
So how does Stalin, in your view, compare with Nitish Kumar, Amrinder Singh?
See, it's very difficult to compare the leaders,
and their styles,
couple of
personality.
things. See, he's yet to become a chief minister. He has not become chief minister. So people have to, he still has to win that and be there and then be judged. One good thing which I would give to Mr. Stalin is that he has spent probably the longest time in public life being son of a chief minister before he has taken over the party. It's sometimes, it's mind-blowing to me. The 40 years he has played this person in waiting, learning, going through the grind. Usually you see son or daughters of the politicians, they come by the 30, 35, they think that they know everything. So we must give credit where it is due. Even though he is, by technically speaking, a dynast because his father was the chief minister, 45 years in public life before he has actually put himself in a position where he's leading TMK. So that's his strength. That tells me that guy has been patient, that guy has been disciplined, and he was willing to learn and go through the grind, which are very rare traits to have in today's...
But to flip that argument, there are some inside the DMK and many outside who wonder whether he has what it takes to take the DMK to power without the absence of his towering father.
But this is where, as a society, we have to be a little bit more sensitive. When someone comes, just by virtue of being someone's son or daughter, we crib. But if someone has spent 20, 30, 40 years going through the grind, then we are saying he's not charismatic enough. If you leave it to me, if left to me, I would pick a guy who has spent 20, 30 years going through the grind rather than someone who has just come by virtue of being someone's son or daughter. So I have great respect for Mr. Stalin for that reason, at least.
How does fighting and planning an election for the DMK compare with West Bengal? Because the Trinamool and the DMK are very different parties. DMK is a far more structured.
DMK is a completely cadre-based party. Trinamool is more like a mass movement converted into party. Of course, the leaders are different. He is a challenger. Didi is a ruling dispensation. She's 10 years, she has to fight 10 years of anti-incumbency. In Tamil Nadu, we are benefiting from 10 years of anti-incumbency. So it's, of course, different world, different challenge, different parties, different culture. Everything is different.
And like you had a figure of double digits for the BJP in West Bengal, is there a figure that you have in Tamil Nadu, or you think that...
I don't give figures in West Bengal also. I'm not giving figure for Trinamool. I'm saying that BJP will not be able to cross 100. In Tamil Nadu, I can tell you DMK is headed for one of its biggest victories ever.
But DMK has won big in the past also.
No, they have won in 1996. I'm talking about DMK party, not the...
But just by itself.
But just by themselves, they should be able to secure one of the biggest victories ever.
Now, there are two theories in Tamil Nadu politics. One is the alliance theory, that the more alliances you have with smaller parties, the better off you are. The other is the theory that the DMK should go it alone as much as possible and try and increase its own strength because this is the best opportunity.
I think DMK will fight, to the best of my knowledge, will fight large number of seats, much more than what most people have expected. It will be largely a DMK-led alliance, predominantly DMK, because that's the only way they can have, they can secure a big victory for themselves, not for the alliance. Of course, alliance will be there. I'm not saying that it will be DMK versus all, but it will be a predominantly a DMK-led alliance.
In the middle of a busy election, how difficult is it to juggle the DMK responsibilities and the Trinamool responsibilities in two different parts of the country?
There are better flight connections now. You have direct flight from Calcutta to Chennai, so you take flight, reach. Usually I take very early.
Both Trinamool leaders and DMK leaders calling at the same time to have.
Yeah, some time you are always struggling with some time management, but you know the flight schedules are quite good. You take early morning flight. By the time people wake up, I'm in Chennai, and I take the similar early morning flight, so I'm in West Bengal if I so choose to be. It's not that difficult. So that much connectivity has improved in the country, especially the interstate connectivity. So you don't have
thanks to Modi ji and Udan and everything.
Yes, thanks to the overall development that has happened in the last many years and probably decades. Some credit, of course, to the present government. But I'm saying no longer you have to fly through the hubs. So you fly from one capital to another capital, which is literally seamless.
So I want to step away for a moment from this assembly election and look at the larger national political picture that is emerging. Many people who look at India's opposition wonder what will happen to India's opposition at a time where the BJP juggernaut led by the Prime Minister, flanked by Amit Shah, is as strong as it is and continuing to expand its presence one way or the other. Where do you see the if the Indian opposition is to bounce back, what do you think the strategy should be?
If you go and ask this question to Mr. Modi, he would say that opposition is as strong as ever it was. They would never take opposition lightly. And that's why they are where they are. In a country like India, as diverse, as big as we are, never ever make the mistake of thinking that there is no opposition. The formation in which that opposition is apparent to you and me might look weak. So just take this conversation to 1973. And if you and I would have having this conversation, no matter how smart we might be, could we have imagined a challenge to Indira Gandhi coming from Jayaprakash Narayan or Nirvan Andolan? If we would have had having this similar conversation say in 1987-88, could we foresee a challenge to late Rajiv Gandhi coming from Vishwanath Pratap Singh and others? So some of these things, where it will come, you don't know. That's the beauty and the challenge of democracy. You never know. So I wouldn't be complacent thinking, or I would not be writing that there is no opposition. And
no, but you're looking at the question from the perspective of the BJP and the Prime Minister. I'm saying look at it from the perspective of those who don't like what's happening.
So those who are in opposition, they have to definitely look back, analyze, they have to listen more to what people want them to do. The biggest problem is they probably are not listening enough to their constituents. Forget about who is voting for BJP. If you ask me, the single biggest factor is whether you are listening to people or not. By whatever means, whether you are listening through Facebook, whether you are listening through your cadre, whether you are listening through your people on ground, whether you are listening because you are doing a Padyatra or you are doing an SNY2, you need to listen to people on the ground to figure it out that what is going wrong with you.
I wish you all the best for having taken out time in the middle of a very busy campaign, multiple campaigns being fought at the same time.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And we'll see if you're able to hold that 3-digit figure, or will this be the last interview with Prashant Kishore, the political advisor?
Yes, it could be.
It could be.
हो सकता है लेकिन होगा नहीं. आप चिंता मत करें.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Hello everyone. This is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.